I'll be fine. I lied. I'm contemplating suicide. I said I'll get by. Oh, I tried. My hands and my feet don't move the same. This love will break this heart of mine. Even the greatest of soldiers need help sometimes. This storm will shake this house apart. Even the brightest of days need light sometimes.
All right. Alex, hi.
Yeah, hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Welcome to tonight's discussion. So we are excited. Yes. So maybe before we start, Alex, let me introduce how we'll conduct this conversation. So first we have Alex Liwali. So Alex Liwali is the CEO of FUNDIS. So he'll be talking about FUNDIS and technology. So I don't want to introduce him, but I just want to say, if you want to join this conversation, it's very easy to join. There's a link on the comment. You just click it. It will take you to our studio, and then we can have this conversation. So we are just talking about young people doing great things, and this is the Kenyan Dream. And maybe in this quarantine, we want to inspire more Kenyan dreams to rise up. So that's the conversation we are having. So just to go into this conversation, and we also have a panel of experts who might be joining this conversation. So wherever you are, guys, especially Wakesa, Dennis, and everyone, please join. All right. So Alex, you can introduce yourself, and then we can go forward.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So my name's Alex Kamanga, though I also am known as Liwali Kivumanyuki by some people. I am the co-founder and chief executive officer at FUNDIS. And the simple way that we love explaining what we do at FUNDIS is that we simply help homes and workplaces to find competent, vetted, and reliable informal sector workers.
All right, interesting. So maybe Alex, we want to hear first. Maybe you can tell us your story, how you grew up. Maybe did you get were you privileged? What kind of life you had, and then up to when you founded your company.
Well, in many ways, I think my story is largely the Kenyan story, and it's a story of hopes, a story of dreams. Well, I come from a very, very, very humble background. I was born and raised for a while in parts of Laikipia, Murang'a, then at some point came to Nairobi for schooling, and yeah, the better part I have been within the city. So I schooled high school. I went to Njeri School, university partly in between Strathmore, and cleared from Technical University. And yeah, I think I finished. I did my last year at Technical University. End of 2015, January 2016, thereabout. I remember, I think there was a strike, so we lost two or 3 months. And I think FUNDIS, for me, proudly I say this is an idea that we have been pretty much working on since when we graduated. So we actually have been exploring options within this industry for 4 years now. But officially, FUNDIS launched in April of 2018. Yes, so in a nutshell, that's Alex in a nutshell.
Wow, amazing. So
yeah.
Maybe just to get to know, what really inspired you to start FUNDIS?
And there's a very interesting story to that. So it happened after graduating in early 2016. So I did a couple of exposure opportunities here and there, and one of them was in a law firm. And then immediately after leaving the law firm, a friend of mine from the university who was a year behind me had put a cocktail together someplace at the CPD, and he just wanted to bring I know he might be watching Solomon Rocky, so he had put together, just young guys to meet and exchange ideas. And within that cocktail, I was attending, and I ran into another friend of mine who also had just graduated from the University, and at that point, I think he was also graduating, and he had just found an internship, and it's the time when massive construction projects were coming in the country, and especially in the city. And while we are having our juices and having conversation, two of them who are in that sector, they start talking about the challenges that they are going through in terms of finding skill sets for their project. So if I remember correctly, the challenge they were having is that, as soon as a construction project starts, every kind of person shows up at the gate site, and someone says I'm a mason, another one says I'm a painter, another one says I'm a welder, and there's really no way to know who is who. So I remember it was very frustrating for them, because you'd be finding somebody doesn't have the skill set when they're already halfway, they have built your wall, it has been done the wrong way, and you have to demolish it. And I just sort of threw a question to them. If they are the guys who have done building construction and they can't seem to solve that problem, so what does it mean for the rest of the public out there who you wouldn't even know who is who? So that's how the idea started. But within one of those conversations, they kept mentioning, and I remember the phrase they were using that technicians use, pesa ya mjengo imerogwa, or money from the construction sector is somehow bewitched, because you'd be like, whatever you've gotten today, by tomorrow there is nothing. And we spent, I think, about 6 months going from construction site to construction site, talking to guys, exchanging, just learning how they go about and how they find jobs. And suddenly I realized, for me, this is a broken system. On one hand, you have lots of construction projects and contractors that are looking for skill sets. On the other hand, you have technicians who are saying they can't find work. And for me, it just didn't make sense. And we thought, let's put something together that connects the two sides more efficiently. So that's the story how this came about.
Interesting. Thank you, Alex. So I want to say, Tino Nyakochenya, I can see you. Hi, we are doing good here. And also, these words are difficult to pronounce. WCB, we can see you. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. Please, if you want to ask any question, you can ask Alex. Today we are discussing about the Kenyan Dream. Whichever the place you are joining us from, actually, we just want to understand how young people can just rise up and do great things, especially in Kenya. But Alex, I just want to ask you a question. There's young people who are out actually in diaspora. So how can we find actually a niche in this country and invest?
Well, I think that's an interesting question you ask, because I think for me, I usually say, one of the most important things that I got to learn over time, and even back in schooling, it's just the ability to identify and position to meet needs. And as a team, we are quite young, and majority of us either they recently graduated or they are about to graduate. And one of the things we are really deeply passionate about, and when we engage with other young people like ourselves, is that first of all, as Kenyans, we think despite everything that's going on, it's practically the best time to be alive. That's number one. This is the only age in time where you and I can say, let's go into business, and tomorrow we do a search online and we register a business, and the next thing we are looking for a customer who we can meet some needs or that kind of thing. So the thing is if you think about all the challenges that you hear every day, whichever sector, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's construction, whether it's transport, whether it's trade, whether it's hospitality, whichever sector you hear guys talking about any sort of challenges, any challenge is an opportunity in disguise. And for me, I always think, for as long as you can see challenges that people are going through or needs that people have, start thinking about them from a mindset of how can you build a solution. Because that's the thing. All the opportunities you will ever think about and you see, it's someone's response to another someone's challenge. So I think for as long as there are challenges, there are opportunities. And these opportunities are there for pretty much anyone.
All right, interesting. So I can see Alphonce is here. So Alphonce, I want to bring you to this conversation. Maybe you can introduce yourself and then you can ask question to Alex.
Thank you. Welcome, Alex. Alex, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I hope are you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. And my name is Alphonce Were. I reside in Nairobi, so I am logging in from Nairobi. I am a labor policy consultant. I don't have a question at this moment. Alex was speaking some good stuff there, so let's hear first, then we can talk or ask questions as we proceed.
Good. So thank you very much, Alphonce. But okay, so Alex, we can continue with this conversation. Now, my question is, young people have always said maybe we are not given opportunities, we are not empowered. Okay, now how can young people maybe rise in situations like now and maybe create solutions instead of complaining?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a very hard question that you ask, because on one hand, if you look at different jurisdictions and different economies, you will always find there is that generation that kind of creates opportunities for others. So in real sense, if you look at where we are today, especially as young people in a country like ours, and within a period that has been broadly referred to as the fourth industrial revolution, I think one of my simplest philosophies and a mantra that I love reminding myself is that every day is a learning day. That's number one for me. Life is a journey, not really a destination. So every waking day, between when you are out of bed and when you are back in bed again, the thing anyone should be able to ask themselves is, what's the new thing that I have learned today? That's number one. Any young person, because one of the things that we have as young people and youth generally is the abundance of time and abundance to be able to learn something new. And the most interesting thing is, and we have the advantage of like working both within the informal sector and the formal sector. So when we're talking about learning, it has really nothing to do with school. It has nothing to do with class. This is simply just looking at, this is a new day. What new thing have I learned? Because as you keep adding, something new to yourself, that's how opportunities, they keep coming along. So the whole thing about Kenyan youth rising, it's actually a question that we should not be asking today. Because if you look, as a country, 20% of our population, we are between the ages of 15 and 24 years old. And when you think about that, interestingly, you realize that Kenya is one of those countries where this youth bulge is higher, it's one of the highest in Africa. Because if you look at the continental average, it's at 19.2% of that same age set. If you look at the global average, it's around 15.8%. So simply what we are saying is, as young people, we are the majority. So if you're thinking about a section of, let's say, customers, or you're thinking of a population or an audience, at any given point, there should be a reflection of the young people, whether it's in parliament, whether it's in whatever leadership position you can think about. So the thing is, as young people, there's need for us to be, on the lookout for all possible learning opportunities. That's how I see it, because I think if you look at the things that are happening today and things that were happening last week, you will always interestingly realize there are a lot of new things happening, and I think the ability to learn and keep adapting is one of the things that as young people we should be able to embrace. So in a very simple way, that's what I think as young people we need to keep doing. Learn as much as you can. You never know at any given point, whatever comes your way.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Alex. Now, now we are in a crisis. I think everyone knows now that we are at home, quarantined. Maybe many people, so for some, they of course finding things to do, maybe even business to do, like you, because your business is tech oriented. Now, in this time, how do we reinvent ourselves? Not now, even young people, even now, everyone, because it seems like the future of work is going to change. What's your perspective in that?
Well, in fact, I love that you are using that phrase, the future of work. And the way I think I would want to answer that, I've been incredibly privileged that, the better part of yesterday, I spent the entire afternoon with one of my coaches, and I think sometimes towards the end of last week, I was also on like a 1 hour call with another coach of mine, and just trying to think about, no one had a sort of schematics for what we are going through now. If you had asked most of us, 3 months ago, what we think the next 4 months will look like, it's east and west where we are today and where we were 3 months ago. But one of my coaches said that, it's not so much about tough times. In fact, I think the statement was, that tough times do not last, but tough people do. So the whole idea about what we are going through now, and it's unfortunate because the magnitude of what everybody is feeling is variant from one person to the next. So we are not all feeling the effects of this pandemic the same way. Some have means they have enough, to be able to stand out a little bit longer. Others have been feeling it from day one. So the whole idea that what we are going through is a size fit, is a one size fit all, actually doesn't apply to it one. But I think every crisis brings out the best in every one of us. So I think the number one thing to being able to tackle this is, I love referring to myself as an incurable optimist, and that simply means even when you see things are like, beating you down and things are tough, always imagining that I have also have, you know, at a personal level, in your personal life, you've also gone through stuff before, and every one of us goes through stuff. And in life, you are either, you know, you are either in a problem, or you came out of a problem, or you're about to get into one. So really, the whole thing about a crisis-free life is not a reality. But the thing then is, there are ways to reinvent yourself. And reinventing yourself, and this applies to, you know, whether you are a student, or you are employed, or you are self-employed, or, you know, you work online, whichever way, because everything has changed. And when you're talking about the future of work, I can bet you that now going onwards, every 2 to 3 years, there will always be changes happening globally in every single industry. So change is likely going to be the order of the day. And for me, I think one of the things that this has brought out is the resilience in each and every one of us. So we have gotten to a point where, you know, if you're at home, you're not working, you're trying now to think, what else can I be able to do, you know, to keep going? So I think the silver lining to every crisis is that it brings out the best in us. And I think in terms of reinventing ourselves is, you know, just thinking at how is this thing affecting you? What are the doors that you had before, opportunities that you had before that have been closed? And there is the backward thinking, or the going back into the past thinking, where you try to ask yourself, if I had like a 5 months prior notice that there's a pandemic coming, how would I prepare differently? Now that you have gone through one, the idea is, if something of this sort ever happened again, if one of us should be prepared for it. So I think it's a time to just reinvent yourself, you know, collaborate. Lots of collaborations are needed. Lots of asking for help, you know. So I think it's a good time that, even though we are going through much, it's a time that is bringing us together and making us, you know, question everything that we have known before.
All right, thank you, Alex. So maybe I want now to Alphonse left. So okay, so I wanted maybe to get some questions, but from him. But anyway, we can proceed. So Alex, in terms of you, which kind of challenges maybe you are facing, especially, and how different were they prior Corona and even now during Corona?
So first of all, you know, as a business, we are very early stage. And on top of being early stage, we are also in a segment, or in a sector, where not very many people are daring to do much, you know, in that space. And by that space, I mean very few people are, you know, thinking about how to build what we call service marketplaces, yeah? And service marketplaces where human interactions are like the order of the day. I mean, the way we work is that there is no way we are going to like diagnose and fix your plumbing thing, you know, remotely. There's no way we are going to like fix if you have electrical issues. There's no way we are going to be able to like fix that remotely. But the other side to it is that, you know, we are one of the dominant players within the informal sector space, and you understand the challenges that the larger informal sector has. You know, people don't have whether it's savings, whether it's you know, a plan for in case of a crisis, you know, where to fall back to. So we found ourselves in a position where just thinking about the safety of workers on the platform, thinking about the safety of the homes and the workplaces that we normally serve. And it's a tricky position to be in, because number one, when you're talking about, social distancing and all these kinds of things, then the next question is, so how do these platform workers continue to make a living, where dominantly the only way they're able to do that is by interacting with their customers? So largely we have had to figure out new ways of reinventing what we do, and also intently getting in touch with all the users and all the customers that we have, and letting them know this is where we are, this is what is happening, this is how we are preparing, and finding new ways, new ways that we can be able to serve them. So in real sense, the beauty in this crisis is that it makes you refocus and think what is really important as a person, as a business, as a community. And it has brought us to a space where, yes, maybe the number of requests or the number of jobs or the number of interactions that we have are, on the downside. But on the other hand, it has allowed us to get really intentional with our community, be it whether it's the merchants that, supply parts, whether it's technicians, whether it's customers, whether it's investors even. So it has brought us to a place where we are having candid conversations, and we are, every single day, because again, the way this pandemic and the restrictions and the limitations come in, the way they have been changing is that you can almost bet there is something new every week. So you don't really have like a script plan for next week. So the effects have been, yes, number of jobs are down, number of customers are down, but on the other hand, relationships are really intentional now. So that's how I think how we are coping with it entirely. And like everyone else, we are hoping that we get really done fast with it, and life goes to another stage.
Okay, good. I think Wekesa is saying that we have been having echoes, so I don't know. Alphonse, were you hearing an echo?
Maybe from Alex's mic.
Okay. I'm not sure. Alex, is it you have one program open, right?
Yes, I just have one open.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe we have some echo. I'm not sure. We want to.
But we can work with it. It is not severe.
So for me, I can't hear Alphonse. Yeah, but I can hear you clearly. But I don't know on your end whether you're feeling echo as well.
On my side, I'm okay. It's not as bad. Huh? So can you hear Alphonse?
I hear both of you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Alex, can you use earphones? We see if you can solve it.
Let me see.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's try to solve the echoes. So guys, you can join this conversation. And if you want to give your perspective, you can also join.
I don't know. How is it now?
Yeah, it's good. I think from my side, it's fine.
Okay. Well, can you hear me? Alex, can you hear me? Okay, Alex can't hear me. I've already even left the studio and come back.
Okay, so, good. So and Alex, you can hear me. You can hear me well, right? Alex?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Good.
Yes,
right.
I can hear you.
So I can see Fred Amisi. Fred Amisi is actually like my mentor. Good to see you, Fred. You can actually join this conversation. All right. So let's continue. Maybe I want to bring Alphonse to this conversation.
Yeah, but how will you have the conversation when Alex is not getting me?
I can rephrase the question to him if he's completely not hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, because what we need to know is whether I am heard by.
I can't hear him. I can see him though, but I can't hear him at all.
All right. So I don't know whose side is not working. So all right. So can we? Oh, yes.
Just.
Can you hear Alex? If you can hear, just confirm to me, Fred.
Yeah, but let me log in with another way and see how it goes.
Okay, so that's fine. So Alex, we can proceed. You are talking about challenges.
Yeah.
You are talking about challenges, but now I want us to talk about opportunities for everyone right now. What kind of opportunities are there?
Yes.
How can we tap on them?
Yes. And I mean, the kind of conversations I actually really love is conversations that are solution focused. So I think that's a really good question that you asked right there. Quickly thinking about where we are right now as young people and trying to think what the next stage will look like. And please allow me to, kind of piggyback on a few statistics here and there and how I feel those have been affected by the current crisis that we have. So, first of all, like I was saying earlier, is that as a Kenyan population, number one, we are privileged to be quite young, most of us.
Yeah.
But if you look at what this current challenge of COVID-19 has brought to the table, number one, there is a need to rethink work as we know it. That's number one. For instance, if you try to think the effect of this pandemic on education system, whether it's at tertiary level, primary level, university level, if you try to think about the whole economical experience for every single one of us. So first of all, I think as young people, when we are thinking about opportunities, number one, it's time to rethink work as we know it. So, of course, we have always known this even before. The only thing is that now the speed at which we needed to have put a solution in place was long overdue. And it's time to start thinking about, the careers that we go to take at schools, the jobs and the market, the way it's defined, the preparation and coaching that goes into every one of us, the career path as we have always known them. So I want to give you an example of an interesting thing that I've been seeing happening in our platform where, let's say you have guys who are on the platform as technicians and they have smartphones and they have access to internet. And right now they are doing, Uber Boda, Safe Boda, those kinds of things. So number one, I feel as a youthful population where we are, it's about time we redefine what career means to every one of us. Yeah, and job opportunities. And I think for me, the biggest excitement that there is the online opportunity. So yes, on one hand, we are an economy where I think about 15 million Kenyans work within the informal sector. And at the same time, if you look at the last 10 years, and this is largely, a reflection of the entire continent. If you think about West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, southern parts of Africa, you will notice a trend where even before COVID-19, a majority of the new jobs that our economies were creating were in the informal sectors, and not in the traditional sector where most of us have always been pushed, to go to school, get a good grade, go to a good high school, go to a good university, get a good job. So we have always known that that was not working, but I think it's a little bit more heightened now by the reality of what is happening. But on the other side, I want you to think about when we have been talking about unemployment for the longest, and the people that are being affected by this, the most, it's young people. But you think about, we have about, 32 million mobile users in this country, about 8 million internet users. And even in the middle of this pandemic, I think I had a collaboration announced between Google Loon and Telecom Kenya on providing internet to some of the most rural, inaccessible places in the country. So first of all, I think we need to take advantage of that space. I think internet access is going to keep growing. I think access to smart devices and smartphones, the cost of these products is going to keep getting cheaper. And I think it's now time to blend everything that we have always known, whether you've been to university or you left at primary level, at secondary level. I think it's about time we intentionally think about digital skills. Intentionally as a country, not just as people who are doing some certain kind of courses within that sector, but generalistic basic digital literacy for every single Kenyan. Because the interesting bit I've now been seeing is that I've seen, countless people that have closed their stalls. Maybe you had a stall at the CBD or in another place, and you have now moved to doing part of your sales on Instagram and Facebook and engaging your people on WhatsApp and leveraging on your WhatsApp status and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking that in another 5 years or 5 to 7 years, it's safe to assume that 3 out of every 5 businesses will have an element of digital relevance. And that cannot be overstated, that it makes sense to start investing in the skills that young people need in terms of just being able to move from the informal traditional space to a newer gig-like space. Because if you think about it, whatever people are calling gig economy now, it's not anything really new to us. It's what we have always known as kibarua for the last, I think, 50 years or so, where somebody shows up, whether it's helping you to pick coffee or pick tea and you pay them something, at 2 p.m. or somebody shows up at your doorstep over the weekend, they want to do cleaning for you in your place. So we have always known this is how our economies work. Now we need to think about now taking advantage, as young people, taking advantage of technology that's growing and remove some of the bottlenecks that we have always had. So I think that for me, we redefine jobs, we redefine careers, and I think that's the way to keep focusing and keep emphasizing the need to grow in those aspects.
All right, interesting. So Alphonse, I want to bring you to this conversation. But
can you hear me now, Patrick?
Yeah, for me, I can hear you.
Alex, can you hear me? Okay, I think Alex can't hear me, and I have questions for Alex. Now that's where the trouble is. And there are questions that may not be interpreted. I need them to be in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but let me try out and see how you are going to work it out then. Because he has talked about us being an intentional country. We are going to move from the traditional way of doing things to online.
Yeah.
Now, all the things that we are discussing is just transfer. Who is creating this online space? Because so far we are using spaces created by other people from elsewhere. So I want to get his opinion on what is our role in creating the online space. That's my first. So, and the issue is, if we are intentional, then we must be creating capacity to create our own online spaces. Facebook, Google, and even the StreamYard. These are US products. Yeah, we also have Chinese products. We have Russian products. We have products from Israel. Yeah, we have a few products from England or UK and a few European countries. Where is the space of Africa in creating these online products?
All right.
Not using existing ones.
I wish, Alex, you could hear this by yourself, but I'm just.
I'm not sure why. I wish I could be able to hear it, but I mean, I can hear you clearly, and I'm not sure. I can see him very well, but for some reason, I just can't. I can't get to hear him.
Yeah, so he's asking actually the space for Africans to create these platforms and maybe this technology you are talking about. Yeah, so what's the space, even what's the role of Africans? Because maybe Facebook is owned by a US company, also StreamYard, or even any tech giant is owned by a superpower or a very blue country. So what's the space for Africa to actually create solutions? Like, of course, FUNDIS is created by you. That's African, that's Kenyan.
But on what platform? FUNDI has been created on a specific platform.
Yes.
It's running on a different specific platform.
Yeah, it's running on Google Play Store. Yeah, true. So he's asking, what's the space for Africans to create solutions?
Yeah. Now, that's a really good. It's a really good question. And allow me to begin by saying that I think it has never been easier to do collaborative work, whether across a room or across countries or across continents. And we are in that stage, and I love the distinction that Alphonce is trying to sort of bring into light, that there is that tendency to feel like lots of the technology platforms that people know largely seem as if they have been developed elsewhere. But look at it this way. Every single thing that we are trying to work, and even on that tech space, is in actual response to needs that we are seeing in our day-to-day lives and in our communities. So, for instance, I'll tell you what, I have a zero tech background. In fact, I'm trained as a lawyer, so I have a zero background in what you call a very technical space. But we need to look at technology as an enabler, not as an end in itself. Technology in real sense comes in as an enabler to an actual need that needs to be met. So I think on one hand, skills are available on the continent. So you don't need to be worried about we have the creativity, the ingenuity, the know-how to be able to do these things, back at home. So there is no fear in actual sense that as a continent we do not have that skill set. We actually do. And if you think about, and in fact, I want to again highlight, the same gig space that we are in, where you have professional platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, where there is a whole chunk of even softwares for those other large markets that are being done here. So the thing is, we just need, and I think it's a good question you're asking, because I think we were having this conversation yesterday with our Chief Technology Officer at FUNDIS, and we were just looking at how do we start appreciating the talent that we have locally, whether it's software developers or whichever technical angle that you can think about, because in real sense we do have the skills, we do have the know-how. The thing is now intentionally working collaboratively. Now, the thing that kills a lot of us is that we build solutions from a perspective of wanting to compete with somebody else or wanting to kill, killing the competition, instead of building solutions to like try to imagine you are building a solution to solve some of your own problems. And that has always been our approach at Fundis from day one. Because the problems we are trying to solve, this is a typical Kenyan problem that if you stop 10 people, you are likely 8 of them have experienced that issue. So I think intentionally thinking about collaboration is the key. And I can tell you, for instance, where we are right now, yes, we are very early stage, but we are working collaboratively on the same problem with guys in Ghana, guys in TZ, guys in Rwanda, guys in Uganda. So the thing is, it has never been easier to collaborate. And collaborate whether it's across a room or across a county or across a country or a continent. And the tools are there. Tools that allow you to do such collaborative work are now available. It's not like 30 years ago, 40 years ago when some of these things were non-existent. Right now you can be able, I can have a challenge where I am seated right now and quickly get in touch with somebody who is very, very far off about the same thing, and immediately we get on, we get online and we work collaborating on it, and by tomorrow morning we have a solution. So I think
I don't know if Alex you can get me.
Difference when it comes to thinking about the technological space. There is no difference between Africa and the rest of the world. I mean, that's one thing for me, because I look at the ingenuity and the solutions that we come up with back here in Africa. They are actually intended for real.
The difference is big. I wish Alex could get me, because
problems, and that's the difference for me.
Okay, Alphonse wants to say something.
I request, the problem is I have used different gadgets. If Alex is not getting me, I request if you can take him and bring him back, and we see if that will be resolved. We just try, because otherwise my issues will not be resolved. I wanted him to respond to the issues. He's addressing totally something different from what I'm raising, because collaboration is totally different. We are collaborating on somebody's platform. We only, how many people or how many organizations, how many countries control things like, let's say, the operating systems, for example. So far, we only have American operating systems. Yeah. So when you collaborate, you only do what they allow you to do, but they're in control. So I really want to hear Alex direct, so that if interruption, I also interrupt him directly, if it were possible. Right. But can we give a try?
Let's try to solve this. Let's try, Alphonse. Let me ask Alex. Yeah, Alex, can you hear him?
Yes.
Did you hear what he was saying?
No, I can see he's talking, but I can't. I can see him, but I can't hear him. That's the only challenge. But I can hear you very well.
Okay, so I'm requesting Alex, you try and leave,
yes,
and then come back, and then we see if you can.
Yes.
You can. Yeah. Just I'll take you, and then you come back. It takes only seconds. It's okay. Yeah, good. But anyway, Alphonse, sure. Continue raising this pertinent issue.
Yeah, you see, you asked a question about pandemic. Now I wanted to reason out with Alex on a reasoning of a pandemic at a scale of internet. Internet is owned by somebody somewhere. There's a group of people. There's a country that owns the internet. There's a small clique of the globe that runs the internet. Just the way Corona has shut us down. When tomorrow they decide to shut us down, and we are saying internet is the way to go, what are our options? Because we are glorifying so much of the internet.
But the problem is Africa has not invested on that. So it's
but
not.
You see that it is not the problem. That is the symptom. That's what you are seeing, and what you see is the symptom. What is causing that? You see, if Africans and young people we're only discussing the leaves, we need to understand the root cause. So if we are not discussing what is feeding this system to make it a herb or a tree or a shrub, then we will always think that we are a shrub, yet we don't know what is causing. Either it's the nature of the seed, the classification, and such things. And we must come to that level.
Right.
Hi, Alex.
See.
Yeah, Alphonse, I can now hear you. I think it's because I joined earlier.
Thank you.
Now, Alex.
I can hear you clearly.
Now, Alex.
This question, yeah.
I was feeling frustrated. You talked of a country being being intentional. Now, intentional in going digital, in acquiring digital competencies and skills, so that
Yes.
in the next 5-7 years, you are seeing every company will have at least a 30-50% component digitally speaking. I agree with you, but what you are discussing is, in my view, just but basic transfer of what we are doing on a live platform, or on what you refer to as traditional platform, to transfer that into the digital space. So my question on that ground was, that digital space, the platform you're talking about digitally, whether it is Facebook, it is Google, it is whatever it is, that platform is owned by somebody, and you find majority of them are owned by US technologies or US related organizations. We also have Chinese organizations which are not necessarily have penetrated to us so far, but they are now competing seriously with the US. We also have Russian organizations and a few European organizations. So the question is, what are we doing to develop these platforms ourselves, so that people ride on our platforms, not necessarily that we are riding on people's platforms, because they will still extort us. I wanted you to, that's what I wanted you to respond to before I go to the issue of the gig economy.
All right, Alex, you can.
All right. Now I hear you clearly, and I think it's a good question that that you asked. First of all, I think if I put into perspective what you're asking, is that I think there is always the aspect of everyone is building on what someone else has built before. So that's number one. And like to bring it a little bit closer home, the way I would want you to think about it is, when you think, let's pick, like, for instance, the ride hailing, the taxi space, where before we had Uber coming into this space, we had our traditional taxi guys, and every one of us had their own taxi guys in their phone. So number one, I think, yes, you are right, a lot of those deliberate efforts need to be made. And it's a whole conversation that's happening globally. For instance, if you think, I think Kenya happens to be one of the countries that is making lots of efforts when it comes to things like the Data Protection Act, and just safety and privacy and all these things. But truth be told, yes, what you're saying is, there is a lot of that dependency and relying on what has been built elsewhere, if I were to put it that way. And I think that's unavoidable. That's why you've been, in fact, I had somebody say yesterday that, when you're talking about data, that data is not even just oil, it's currently the oxygen that people need, and whoever has that data has, has sorts of controls end of the day. So there is really no right answer for what you're asking, because I think every single jurisdiction is trying to make their own efforts to bring that closer home. But now, the interrelated nature of the technological space makes collaborations way more easier than building from scratch. So for instance, if you try to think, trying to build a ride-hailing taxi platform without having seen one before, or try to think about a platform like Airbnb, when you're bringing guests and hosts in a traditional space that no one would have ever envisioned that coming. So I think to try to really answer your question is that there needs to be a lot of collaborative effort. And for me, I think protection levels is what is more important.
Yeah, now,
so that you make sure
Alex,
every single data you're giving out is yes.
Alex, allow me to interrupt you because one, you have a better capacity as an individual, the fact that you are doing tech work and you have background in law, I see that's why you also have raised. I had you are on my fourth point. Are you getting the echo?
Just continue.
Okay, now what I really need to understand, because you see, every technology we are talking about has a beginning. Somebody thought it through. A social media platform, somebody said, okay, this is a social media for everybody. This one is for professionals. Let me come with LinkedIn. This one is for, so there's somebody who has always pioneered the thought line. So that even if you are thinking that we are building on something, but we are building a platform that is independent from the others, you borrow the idea, but you make it niche. You niche it so that it meets a specific need. Now, as we speak, I don't know what is making the world not able to develop, let's say, a platform where you see the way we have Android and iOS. Yeah, how do you call these ones? Android, iOS. We call them operating systems. So why will the operating systems only come from US? And of course, Chinese are working on another one which they have never disclosed, and they were almost disclosing it when Google decided to bully Huawei, and Chinese tech said, okay, we will work without even your system. So tell me, why are we not? Because gig economy, and allow me, I don't know if the points, I don't know why they're not coming out. But when you're talking of gig economy, you're talking of a situation where we have gig workers, and gig workers are independent contractors. They're online platform workers. They're contract farm workers who they are on call or on demand, but also temporary. So there is no social protection in that relationship. There is a lot of exploitation. They're extremely precarious in nature of the work they do. If they become sick, they will never have income forever. Yet a few days ago, they made a lot of money for somebody else they were working for. So, and we don't have a global framework that gives the gig economy a legal framework where you can protect the workers in the sense that if they make money, they are socially protected. They can have social insurance company protection. They can have pension developments in that platform. They can have their children's schooling being taken care of. They can have their housing being taken care of. So gig economy is an economy of poverty. It's an economy that will make us more poor than we think. And when you talk of people becoming people working online, out of every 100, a maximum of 2 in that group of 100 are the only ones who can benefit substantively. For example, where you work, if you're working online, you're definitely working with other people, including employees with you. Now, of all those people, only maybe the owners of that platform or the face of that platform, and there may just be 2 or 3. These are the ones who can survive such a corona situation for more than 2-3 months. But the rest of the people, they are going back to square zero or even negative. So what is the value addition of online work? That's what I'm interested in. And how can we develop our own platforms so that our platforms bring value to the workers? Otherwise, I'm seeing we are bringing more poverty to the workers. Facebook, we are using it for free, but the owner of Facebook, whom we are generating the content for free, is becoming a billionaire in US dollars when he is not even 27 years old.
All right. I want you, Alex, to respond to that. But I want to say, I personally disagree with that. I think is the economy is the future, and from my own side, it's going to employ more people. But Alex,
the reason I actually love having a conversation like this with young people is because we're actually addressing things that affect and things that are directly applicable to us. I'll try to answer Alphonse from a statistical perspective, where, for instance, I think the first ever really comprehensive gig economy analysis, I think, was done around last year, and the report was published around August 2019. where, you know, the whole space has, you know, when you think about the online space, statistically it had about, you know, 36,500 online workers, which is a very, 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 very small portion, as Alphonse is saying, as compared to the 14.9 million Kenyans who are part of the offline gig economy. And this offline gig economy that spans out in agriculture, manufacturing, construction, trade, hospitality. But from the same angle, what I would want you to imagine is somebody who buys a new car and decides they want to position themselves on one street of the CBD and wait for guys who are going to come looking for a taxi. That's one scenario I want you to think about. Because what is happening is that while there are lots of issues with gig work and the gig economy, the reason we are having most of these bottlenecks is because largely we have allowed the gig economy to happen to us. It's almost as if it's, you know, the way rain would rain on you, or the way weather happens on you. And like Alphonse is saying, there is a lot of intentionalism that needs to happen around there having an adult within the space who is keeping watch on all these gig platforms that are happening. But on the other hand, what I want to assure you, Alphonse, is if you think about the informal sector that we have had and the way we have known it, right now, for every 4 young people that are joining the labor market, only one formal sector job is being created. So by default, 3 out of every 4 young people that are joining the labor market are being forced to fend for themselves within the informal sector. And again, the informal sector, the way we have known it, the characteristic features that it has is, number one, it's very fragmented. Where you are seated right now, you could be having a leakage in the house and you are looking for a plumber, and there's a plumber next door who doesn't know that you actually have a need that needs to be met. That's number one. It's very highly fragmented. Secondly, there are lots of inefficiencies when it comes to access. So this whole idea that when I need somebody to come and fix my shower, sometimes I may have to call a friend who has a friend who might know a guy. And even when I get that guy, there's no way of telling whether this guy has actually ever seen this kind of shop before. But thirdly, and most importantly, the informal sector as we know it, work and productivity is very low. In fact, we always associate Juakali and the informal sector and all these other things with poor quality. And the intentionality that we are trying now to build with gig work is simply transitioning work opportunities from the traditional, insecure, precarious informal sector to a more functional, well-accessible, and, you know, more visible kind of a platform. So in real sense, there's actually nothing new that we are creating. The only thing we are trying to do is, we are saying, right now, if you talk to the government and try to ask them how many number of young people between ages 14 and 25 are in the informal sector, they don't know. But at gig platforms, we have that rough idea. So for instance, you're able to say, we have 1,000 workers on the platform who are this age, this schooling from this place and this place. So it allows us to start harnessing intentional, actionable data. So the idea that it's going to happen overnight, that we are going to move from an informal sector to a formal sector, is not going to happen overnight, and I can assure you that. But what we are trying to do is that we are saying, how can we craft an intentional path? A path that is harnessing data, a path that is allowing us to observe and learn and improve, that at the end of the day, we can be able to start working with technical vocational education training institutes and tell them, hey, look here, the construction industry, these are the sets of applicable skills that they need. So this thing that you guys have taught for the last 20 years has no real application in the real world. On the other hand, you can be able to think about all the seasonal casual workers, majority of whom right now they have been laid off. When life goes back to normal, there's likelihood if you own a factory, you will try to get some of these guys and you will call somebody and somebody will tell you, hey, since you laid me down 3 months ago, I have since found another place, therefore I'm not available. So what we are trying to look at is there an intentional way that this can be done? So what this really means is that gig platforms have the incredible opportunity of being able to formalize work conditions. So for instance, for us, we in conversations with guys like the National Construction Authority, we are talking with guys like, the Kenya Union of Domestic Workers, that kind of thing, where we are able to show them intentional data that we are gathering, real-time data, reliable data, actionable data. On the other hand, we are better placed even inform around social protection, because we are actually making, for instance, right now we were having conversations with some guys about the whole thing about the government issuing cash transfers and how they go about that. But for instance, for us, I can be able to tell you, a plumber within Nairobi, this is their lifestyle, this is what they make, this is what they spend, and you can be able to use that as a representative sample. And I want you to imagine, like, the goal that we have, that by the year 2023, you are providing jobs to up to 10,000 workers. People who can be able to say, on top of my own jobs, I'm getting 3 jobs from this platform. But again, try to think about the intentional transfer of skills. Because for instance, I tell you what, for us, like, one of the things we are putting very much intentional focus is soft skills training, is digital literacy training. And what usually happens is that the way we do our quotations, our invoices, our receipts, you over time see a technician, when they have their own job, getting in touch with you so that you can put their own quotation the way it's normally put on the platform. And suddenly you can start seeing the intentionality. And again, you will see, let's say a new week has started by Tuesday, Wednesday, you will see guys starting to call asking, hey, do you guys have a job for me? So I think if you look at the way the scenario is and what it could be, we would rather have a map that is half correct, but at least on that half correct part, there is potentiality that we can improve accessibility, we can make access to jobs easier, we can monitor what happens, and we can start having strong conversations around building some of these infrastructures. So one of the things we want to be in a position to do is, can we be able to have a conversation with our policy makers with intentional data that is reliable, and move from there, where it's not them against us, it's not jurisdictions against Uber, but a conversation where we are looking at it together and working collaboratively.
Thank you, Alex. So I want to maybe
yes.
you go ahead with the follow-up.
Yeah, you hear me? You are able to hear me?
Yeah, continue.
Okay. What I'm interested in, because the line that Alex started with is a line that we have had, and that's why I'm bringing a new line so that we understand this thing in a totality. And I think the first thing I want us to understand at this point, and I want to get your view, both Patrick and Alex, starting with Alex, when we are talking about formal jobs or informal jobs, what are we referring to? What makes job informal?
Mm-hmm. All right, Alex.
So quick off, for me, the definition around informal and formal has to do with noticeability from the legal perspective. Yeah, from a perspective where we can be able to intentionally document. That's the angle that we love taking, such that if you are thinking of all the digital systems that, using the various creative way, avoid the noticeability and the remission of taxes and those kinds of things, those part of that informal transactions that are happening that are outside the legal purview. That's the adoption that we love taking when we are making a distinction between the informal sector and the formal sector.
Okay. Patrick, you want to respond? Or I proceed?
So there's no.
Okay. Now, with that in mind, I therefore appeal to you to look at it this way. As it stands today, I know we can improve on this, and we must improve on it, whether we like it or not. Otherwise, we are going in the wrong direction. And the issue is that so far we have more informal people on the digital platforms than we have on the non-digital platforms in terms of proportion. If you look at how many people are on that platform and what proportion are formal or formalized and what proportion are not formalized, then the digital platforms so far have informalized jobs more than the non-digital platforms. That is my view and observation this far. I don't know, what is your take on that one?
Alex, I want you to respond.
Yeah, Alphonse, you are actually correct. In fact, I think it was September last year during the World Economic Forum in Cape Town, I think, where the whole discussions around all these online platforms that are operational on the continent, whether they actually make their contributions of taxes and all that kind of thing, where you're making money out of this market, but are you paying taxes within that space? And that's the difference that we think needs to be addressed. Because, for instance, if you think about what it would mean if, domestic workers, nannies, would be able to come together and create their own online platform where all the proceeds go back to them. Yeah. But now, what cannot be recorded cannot be measured. Even if it cannot be measured, it's even hard to tax it. So I think for me, we need to break this conversation into a couple of phases. First of all, and the plan that we think, and we have been trying to even study the history of the taxation system that we have and its reliance on largely around taxing the retail space. If you think about why most of these things actually happen, is that our governments have no real way of measuring the size of this informal sector that we have, and you will always, and if you check, you'll always see contradicting figures every now and then. So I think for me, what needs to happen is we need to start from a friendly position or a friendly phase, where first of all, before even we start thinking about whether it's simply a migration of informality that is going digital, we need first of all for that to happen. Yeah, if it's possible for lots of these offline informal work happening, first of all, for it to go informal and still be digital, that will be a plus, because it brings us one step closer to where we can be able to measure it. So for instance, what I want you to think about is there a way in this country right now that we can be able to tell how much a household spends on repairs? So can we be able to tell how much they spend on their car repair, on their house repairs, on their gadgets repairs, and all these kinds of things? So once we can be able to be in a position where we can intentionally see this data, like for instance, if I were to pick like real life examples that we use with guys on our platform, yeah, where you're able to observe, okay, in a month, this guy does this number of transactions. Yeah. So then the goal comes for him to be able to like live a decent livelihood. What should be the target number of jobs that he should be able to do? So the informality that is happening online is inevitable. But I think it's one step closer in the right direction, because it makes it, first of all, easier to remove the bottlenecks of quality and all that kind of thing. Let me pick an example like an Uber example or a FUNDIS example, where when a technician is doing jobs, and the traditional way he has always been used to is, even if he serves one client in an unsatisfactory manner, the next customer has no way of knowing. You are not in a position where this guy is conscious that, look, if a customer sent me to go and buy a spare part and I disappeared with the money, there is a place that's likely to be visible. And the next person who wants to engage this guy may actually be able to see that. So that is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because it may feel like the Uber driver or the FUNDIS fixer is being punished for one thing or the other. But the other side is, end of the month, we can be able to observe 5 people complained about this guy on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that happened online. We can therefore not be able now to bring this guy and tell him, okay, you need to work on your language, you need to work on your decency, you need to work on your hygiene. And then secondly, you can be able now to start making this person see the sense of, maybe they learned their skill, in an apprenticeship kind of setting where they started as Mtuamkono, and over time they got tools. And now, because of this intentional visibility and intentional focus, we can now start telling this person, okay, it would make sense for you to be able to acquire this National Construction Authority recognition, or to attend this 3-day seminar that is being done by the National Industrial Training Authority. And thereafter, that person can be able to walk away with, even if it's a 3-day certificate of participation. The next person who hires that guy can be able to actually leverage and say, by the way, I have attended training X, Y, Z, and therefore I need to get this job. So the informality going online, it's gonna keep happening. It's gonna keep happening, but it's gonna keep happening because policymakers are a bit lagging behind into that space. For instance, when we're talking about gig workers, it sounds as if it keeps changing from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and from time to time. So what constitutes an independent worker and all those kinds of things? What sort of social protection measures should be put in place? So I think let's allow it first of all to go online, because if it goes online, it's very easy to encourage it to go to the next level. But it's way worse off if we leave it to remain in the informal, insecure, unstable, irregular state as it is.
Okay, right. I was not raising, my focus is not that we remain informal, but my issue is that as we are planning to adjust and go online, are we going to make more blunders so that when you live with blunders and you carry forward blunders and then you create new blunders, it's worse off. And I want to give an example. As we speak now, in Europe, entire Europe, they came up with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which strictly protects information of anybody in the EU, in the European Union. So if you are an online person, business, or organization, you don't dare play around with the information, confidentiality and protection of that information, personal information of anybody from the EU. And we have seen even companies like Google being fined, given a fine as high as $2 billion for lack of following this regulation. Now, when we are talking about Africa, we are jumping into this ship so that we create problems and then we think we will solve them later. Are you not seeing that we are on step 5, but we missed 1, 2, 3, and 4, and therefore we are already faulty? What we need, in my view, we first create, from where we are now going forward, we must create what I will refer to as the legislative platform to protect the locals, so that we have less of exploitation. Because today, the call centers, all the call centers of major tech companies are in the global south. If you are thinking of Facebook, for example, their call center in Africa is in Nigeria, because Nigeria has high population, and therefore they can manipulate the government, and there are no laws to regulate how people should be paid. And as a result, they will underpay people, overwork people, and people are not well protected. But Facebook is thriving in the entire Africa. Then you look at Google, for example. If you are to do Google business and you want to have your advertisements and you want somebody to assist you, when you make a phone call, even though Google Africa is in Westlands, Nairobi here, you rarely can have a physical meeting in this Nairobi office. So you have to make a phone call. The phone call will go all the way to India, where there is a large global call center. Yeah, you look at banks, global banks or international banks like Standard Chartered. You find that their global calls, either call centers or data centers or centers of operation, are outside their own home origin, because the home origin, like in London, for example, whether it was Barclays, now ABSA, which is in South Africa, or Standard Chartered, you find that these global conglomerates, they can't manage staff from their own country because of tough regulations, but they come and manipulate our local situations because we have weak or no regulation at all. So my view is that as we are advocating for young people to go online, they are young, so they are not aware of the critical issues around regulation. Now, our MPs, our legislators also are not all-rounded. Have we given them these proposals? Have we shared with them, or we are just blaming them for the sake of blaming them? So the people in the space, what is our role in creating awareness of legislators to come with these laws? Because we have to inform the law and give them the examples. Then they do their research. They have a research department that picks it from there, and then we have good laws. But if we are not participating as locals, as young people, as the older people who have in the young bracket, we have younger people who are older than the rest, who have tested the waters. They have seen things like you and me. What is our value addition in the chain, so that the younger ones than us who are coming tomorrow will find a better value, not just in us having started the businesses, but us having created a space where they can thrive better than we did, or have less struggle for the start than how we did it.
All right.
So to me, that's the direction I'm thinking.
All right, sure. So maybe Alex, I want you to respond this way. Number one, Africans, we don't have jobs, right? That's one. Let's start. Young people are not in jobs. You have said many of us, when we leave maybe schools or campus or even high school, we go out there to the job market and you cannot find a place to be employed. So number one, so tech is giving these people work, right? So there's a balance. We have to work with that.
But Patrick, today I will be stubborn in this show, because this narrative is not true. It is common, but it is not true. US, okay. For you to survive in America, you must have a minimum of 2 jobs.
Yeah.
For you to just survive so I don't think that is the type of life we want to live. So if you're talking of people having no jobs, then we must be, and we are creating a lot of money, then we must have social protection where those without jobs can still survive, because it's not a must that you must have a job to survive. If the economy is generating enough, why should, for example, you have seen in the media in the last few days when they're talking about KCB CEO, who is in 4 years, he has earned more than $1 billion in 4 years. Yeah, earned more than $1 billion. Now, $1 billion is money that if you are eating every day, if you're eating 30,000, you need 92 years to complete it. So the issue is the sharing, the regulatory space. How are we sharing the cake? Not necessarily that the cake is small. The cake is so big. Some people are wasting.
Yeah, you are right. I am not refusing, but I'm just agreeing. I want to find a balance in this conversation.
Okay.
So that if we go forward, we have to leave young people with the solution. You know, are we telling them that there is no regulation, so you cannot actually create these solutions? That's number one. Number two, we have to understand, of course, there is an issue of regulation, which is our leaders' problem, right? And as citizens, we have to rise up as young people and formulate this legislation you are talking about and policies the way we want it to run. That's one. But again, we have to agree, number one, we need people to create solution like Alex. That's where my conflict is. So Alex, I want you to respond in terms of how young people rise up right now. At the same time, number one, we want to create income for people, because part of the problems we have in the world, if people cannot find what to do or what to eat, there's a lot of problems. Maybe I want you to respond that way.
Yeah, but the income should be decent income, not just great income. Decent income.
That we agree.
Yeah, in fact, I think the way I'll try to answer it is, I'll in fact try to answer both of you in that perspective. That first of all, when we are talking about building jobs for young people, there is a very, very, very vitality that is needed. That first of all, those jobs must be very decent. Secondly, those jobs should be stable, and those jobs should be very regular, and the doers of those jobs should be able to find that work to be dignified. There's a very, 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 you know, there's a need to make sure, first of all, that happens. But secondly, as Patrick is saying, we know for a fact that 84% of the unemployed in Kenya right now are between the ages of 15 and 34 years old. That's number one. And if in fact you try to look at the census data for the census that was we just did last year, in fact I found it quite interesting that, you know, you have a whole 2.6 million Kenyans who are actively looking for work, but no work is available for them. But the other side to it is this. Up to 84% of the Kenyans that responded to that census exercise between the ages of 15 to that 34 years, either own one form of an ICT-enabled tool, or have used it, or have bought something online, you know, in the last 3 years. And I think that's where our outlook or our thinking should be. That is there a way, if we are saying we have about 50 million Kenyans, and we are saying we have 32 million mobile users and another 8 million internet users, is there a way we can leverage on those two factors to create new revenue streams? That's number one. So let's even not first of all call them jobs. We say an extra revenue stream. That I'm a student by day, and between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., I'm an Uber driver. Yeah, that's number one. That's an extra revenue stream. Or a plumber by profession, but in between times when I don't have active jobs, I'm on Safe Border, I'm on Uber, and I can make a little here and there. That's number one. The focus needs to be, first of all, let's think about how do we translate the dormant youth to some level of productivity. Yeah? So now, when we're thinking about these young people, if you try to think about it and you tell me where else you think these jobs are going to come from, because if you asked me, the way you said that we seem to have jumped from step 1 to 5, leaving all these other steps that, you know, Southeast Asia went through and all these other countries went through, and now we are thinking about, is there any likelihood that manufacturing will create the jobs that we are looking for, while we know literally we are importing finished stuff? You know, that even if you are talking about some of the most novel things is perhaps stuff that is done elsewhere but assembled here. So you look at what's that one thing that has the potential to create just as many jobs as manufacturing did in Southeast Asia? And there's this concept that we are exploring, what we call industries without smokestacks, yeah? Industries that have the same potential, but they are not within the manufacturing space. And for me, if you try to think about how many people do we know who work in the retail space? You know, think about a stylist who work in a salon, a guy employed in a butchery, a waiter employed in a hotel, a young man employed by another barber. I want you to imagine about all those people that together are making up that 14.9 million Kenyans within the informal sector, and it's spread all through rural and urban centers, because we are talking about domestic workers who sit in strategic places in estates waiting for jobs over the weekend. But it's the same thing if you went to rural areas where somebody is waiting for the next time that, you know, people are going out to pick tea, or, you know, there's a harvest that needs to happen, or somebody needs to have their livestock taken care of. It's the exact same thing. So our question that we need to be asking is, as young people, and we know, by the way, I think by 2050 it's projected that Africa will have nearly 362 million young people between the ages of 14 and 25 years. So the big question is, number one, if unemployment is the biggest question of our time, what will it look like 30 years from now? So therefore, we look at, is there a way we could rework? It's just moving the same cards that are existing in the same space, you know? It's the same factories, it's the same construction companies, it's the same retailers, but we rethink, how would a LinkedIn for a plumber look like? How would a Fuzu or Brighter Monday for a domestic worker look like? Yeah? I'll give you examples. I know somebody who has done masonry for the last 20 years, and they have no way of showing the job that they did yesterday. You know? So we need to get to a point where we show these guys, look, we have seen guys that go, you know, if you go to carpenters, you will see guys who go as far ahead as to having a physical album where they are taking photos of what they have done before. Now we are saying we are in a beautiful place to leverage some of these things. So one, we think rearranging the pieces that are in the sector will create efficiency. That means as a plumber, as a domestic worker, as a farmer, as a factory worker, perhaps I could wait for the next notification on a job right on my phone. Yeah, whether as an SMS or as a pop-up or whatever it is. That's number one. And then secondly, while we are doing this, we can be able to document your output or the processes that you go through. So I want you to think about, to use the construction space, for instance, and all the latest technology that is happening around that space. I have seen workers who go on YouTube, you know, to learn. And I tell you this, I've seen in this belief that a customer goes to a service center, leaves a very expensive device, the technician says they're going to be able to sort it. But as soon as the customer goes out, the guy goes online to even check how to open this thing in the first place. Yeah? So we are thinking, we can already see the intentionality. And I want you to think about the estates where you see carpenters putting up their names on electric posts. Those guys are intentional about wanting to be noticed and wanting to be seen. So we are saying there is a better way to do it. Yeah? And doing it is looking at these guys and saying, okay, as a platform, as FUNDIS, we are in a better position to market collectively for plumbers by helping them think about things they have never thought before, like taking photos, like wearing a uniform, like carrying a job card, you know, like carrying an invoice book, a receipt book, and all these things. These are skills Even if they went to school, they may never learn. We teach guys simple things as you're interviewing or assessing a job, have a notebook and a pen. Yeah? You don't pretend that all these things the customer is showing you here, there, and the other place, you're gonna get them like okay. And those are the basic things that we need to go into that space. Yeah. So, and this is what the guys are. I mean, what is the use of having guys who are graduating with a degree and have done a couple of ICT units, but if you ask somebody to do something on Google Docs, they have never heard about something of that sort. And yet somebody has about 5-6 units in an undergraduate program that they have already done. So for me, I'm just thinking about the intentionality that as platforms, we are able to encourage conversations that household workers may never have. So for instance, if tomorrow you wake up and say, this is the minimum wage that a domestic worker should be given. Yeah? And the person who is employing a domestic worker maybe has a certain level of income that if you force them to pay their worker that much, yeah. But I want you to imagine that at this day and age, you see offices where they still employ somebody to cook tea full-time, somebody to run most of these errands. And now we feel we're in a position where we can even be able to have conversation with corporates and encourage them to do a more systematic, project-based, task-based kind of a system where they can be able to take advantage of numerical flexibility where, if I'm a factory worker and I wake up tomorrow, I need 10 guys extra. There's a place I can go. If a hotel, I had closed down, we have opened, COVID-19 has ended, we are back to business. There's a place I can go immediately and ask, I need 5 guys. But on the other side, you have 1,000 guys that are on that platform. That, there is a systematic way that, you are not having to move all over the city, knocking doors, looking for jobs. So it's the only way you can think that it can be done. It can only be online, and that's why predominantly platforms are technology based. There is no other way that can be done. Now I want you to think about the spare part guy that sells spares on our platform because this platform exists. I want you to think about the technician who relies on this and gets extra training, extra assets, and at the same time, we are recording data because I want you to imagine this. If you stopped any plumber or any carpenter or any domestic worker and asked them, hey, how much did you make this month? I'll bet 99% of them cannot be able to tell you. And because there is no intentionality about some of these, like you think about record keeping skills, yes, it's something that maybe somebody will have done at a college level or that kind of place. But if you went and plugged these skills to somebody who has been in that space 20 years. So I want to show you like one of the things that we are doing. So we have all these veterans who have been in this space for maybe 20 years, 15 years. But if you send that guy a Google pin to be able to find a client's location, they're having challenges with that. But we are able to pick 2 guys who are leaving, college, they are finishing their certificate next month, and intentionally in a platform like this, send these guys out together and try to think, there's no way, if you have 1,000 blue-collar workers on your platform, there's a possibility you can attach another 1,000 young guys to these 1,000. And that's a possibility if you are just a small office, you would not be able to do. And there will be lots of intentionality, connectivity. So when you're thinking about, can we help this guy now to be able to go on Facebook? If he has just done a nice piece of furniture, post it, tell people how he came about it, where he got the material, that kind of thing. Those are the things that if you talk to a customer, they will say, I found that to be very professional, And we think this can be done all across sector. You can do this in the retail space, the manufacturing space, the construction space, and all these spaces. Now, even try to think about like the entire matatu sector. Yeah, and I mean, there's a book I would really want to encourage if young Kenyans can be able to find it. It is a book that we are even trying to think how we could be able to get the publishing rights for that book, because that book was written in 1983 by an engineer by the name of S.M. Wa Mayi. And in 1983, Wa Mayi was projecting, in fact, the book is titled How to Make It in the Coming Juakali Boom. And in 1983, when Wa Mayi was writing this book, I think there were about 15,000 graduates that year. And nearly 30 years ago, he was saying of a time that is coming where guys who have worked for multinationals will suddenly find themselves not happy in those jobs, whether it's in a bank or a big conglomerate, and they think they need to do a side hustle. Yeah, and they're gonna need to bring the skills they have learned in the multinationals into this informal sector. And the example he gives is how the matatu industry started to rival the Kenya bus and all those other established platforms that were back there then. Yeah? That on my way to work, I would decide I have 3 seats behind here. I can take 3 guys on my way and charge them something small, and I drop them in town, they pay something. Interestingly, that's how the entire matatu culture started. And he's saying, as long as they are going to have a demand in the market, like a demand that we have now, yeah, there's likely young people will need to package themselves in a way that they can be able to meet that demand. And that year over year calls for a rethink. It calls for thinking it in a new, fresh way. So I think as young people, we are not in a badly off place, and we would be kidding ourselves if we say the gig economy will solve all our problems. In fact, it's not. At the rate, if you look at the number of platforms we have right now, if you look at the size of investments we have in that space, it's not fast enough to address our unemployment need. But again, it's the only way we can have an intentional conversation that can be able to back some few other things that we can build to it. Because if you think about it, the projection is that, from 2019 to 2023, I think that's a span of 5 years, the entire gig economy will be growing by, I think, 33%. But if you think of a space like the one we are in, where predominantly I think we are about two platforms, that sector is at its early stage, it's at its infancy. It's going to be growing averagely every year at 63%. So that means there are lots of things we could be able to do, reorganize, help guys package themselves, work with policymakers within the space, work with other platforms as well, work with retailers, manufacturers. I want you to think about all these brands that are in this space, whether it's electronics or it is construction things, and all those things.
All right. Thank you, Alex. So I want us actually to move to that.
Yeah, no, there's a direction. Are you able to hear me?
Before I just a minute. I think Irene is saying hi to us. Irene, we can see you. Thank you for joining. And also, Emi Sembe is saying next time I invite him, I'm going to invite you next time. All right, thank you. So, Alphonse,
yes.
Now you can ask.
Is it my phone that has the echo? Or?
No, just proceed.
Oh, okay. I wanted to make a standpoint for the workers, because one thing that must be very clear in the employment sector or labor sector is majority will be employed, not create the jobs for themselves. So that's where the first thing we usually get wrong when we want everybody to create the job. Majority cannot create the job. So it is the minority that when we want to address creation of jobs that will be beneficiaries. Otherwise, the first thing we need to know is those who get to do those jobs, they have rights and they have to live a decent life. So when I was raising the issues, is because I have been an online writer. I've written in different online writing platforms. Yeah, I've owned an account. So I've employed people to write for me in those accounts. So it is, I'm not imagining things. I've gone to YouTube, studied how to develop websites. Up to date, I develop websites for customers and I make money. So I know what this happens. But I reached a point and also register the business. Instead of doing it myself, I get other Developers get more jobs. I've advertised online, get more jobs. But you see, that is now for people like me who can create the jobs, people like Alex who can create the jobs. But that group is a very small group. Majority are those ones who want to come. But when they come, as much as we are talking about having business, the truth is that the few now who are having those platforms as business, they are also exploiting the majority. And that exploitation is now what we must address. We must be an honest society. As much as we are speaking, you know, if we don't address our problems, we create more problems and think that we are succeeding. You don't succeed by creating more poor people around you. And they make you rich because you eat their sweat. So as we are addressing these things, that's why I started by that line. But now I want to shift slightly to the people who will be creating the jobs on the platform, because we also need to address them, because if we don't develop them, then we will never develop jobs. If we only rely on others from outside to develop these jobs for us, because every job that we are employed in, every company that exists today, every business or organization, even if it's non-profit, it was established, it started someday. And there are only few people who sit together or they initiate that process. So that is the group now I want us to address maybe in the next few days, so in the next few minutes. And I think now that's where the Alex expertise as an entrepreneur, as a digital person who begins a business online, now comes on board. Now, this is the first thing I want to ask Alex now. For young people who have the capacity to create jobs, and they may not necessarily have the skills that they were trained formally, but they have the capacity to run an online business. How do they identify online opportunities for business?
All right, Alex, respond. Well, just unmute you. Sorry.
Yes, I think that's a deep question that Alphonse has just asked.
Okay, proceed.
Yeah, so there are several ways to actually look at it. And I would love to, for instance, use the logic that that personally maybe I think I used to transition from feeling like I don't want to like build a legal career, but rather, you know, think of something that I would do that by itself will be able to create a few more opportunities for others. I think let's begin from the point of, if you look at the number of people who actually have some sort of training in something, because I mean, when we are talking about the larger chunk of the people who have trained and acquired a skill in some area, but they cannot be able to actively translate it into meaningful income or meaningful, you know, in a revenue generating thing. I think the first thing that needs to happen is whichever sector that you find yourself in. So I have like a very simple formula that I try to think about. And I think that I would want to encourage that anyone else, that it has worked for me both at a personal level and you know, in the various places where I had the privilege maybe to lead teams and even now as an entrepreneur. First of all, you need always to think about three things. Yeah. Is there a way whatever I'm doing can be done faster? You know. Secondly, is there a way it can be done in any package sort or any output source or any outlook sort of way that makes it look cheaper? And thirdly, is there any way it can be able to be done in a way that feels as if it's faster? So I think, I don't know whether I've covered the three of them, yeah? So it needs to be better, cheaper, faster, yeah? And that applies to any sort of industry that you can think about. And in fact, sometimes what we call technology is simply a simpler way of doing things. You know, if you can find a way that something was being done for 5 hours, and now you figured a way it can be done at half that time, that is in fact technology. And when we are talking about building something new, there is the whole aspect of bringing into existence something that did not exist before, and making something that existed before look a little bit better, a little bit serve more people and that kind of thing. So I think as young people, for instance, when I looked at the skills that I had acquired and the potential opportunities that I could create, I did feel like I could be able to create an opportunity for more than one person who was me. Okay, so for me, I love big challenges, I love big problems, I love working with small things and making them grow. So as we are thinking about people who can move into spaces that we have, we need to think about beyond just doing a side hustle or doing something to add, just some small money extra. We need to think about intentionally, how can we create big businesses, for instance? So for instance, when we're talking about guys who want to go into business, can we be able to think of a way we can build businesses that can be able to employ 10 people, 15 people, 30 people at a go, as opposed to you and me leaving our accounting practice and opening our small individual accounting practices that have not done like a really major dent. And I think as young people, one of the things, and I've actually been loving what I've been seeing the last 2 or 3 months, where, like, for instance, I know of guys who are like within the same space, clothing and tailoring and those kinds of things, and they quickly reorganize and come together and think, now how can we be able, do masks in a larger way, but do it together? Because for you, if you do it alone, maybe you have your 5 guys, I have my 5 guys, there's a natural limit how many people you can reach. So lots of collaborative platforms. And the good news is communities have been coming up, I think, in almost every single sector that you can think, whether it's physical communities or online communities, whether they're in the form of incubators, accelerators, and what have you, whatever you can be able to think about, whether it's guys who are just thinking about providing people internship, volunteerism, which I actually think is one of the under-tapped resources that can be able to go into that space. It's all about now making young people see that together, I mean, alone I'm limited, but together we can be able to do like lots of things together. So for instance, if we have built this technology outfit, maybe there's somebody there who has figured how to organize offline, guys who can be able to do cleaning in an estate, maybe it's a chama of women or a group of guys who have figured how to wash cars and do it excellently. Can we be able to leverage on their really good operational skills on ground and the technology infrastructure that we have built and build something together that for customers, it's cheaper, it's better, it's more, looking nicer. So I think, if you think, for example, Alphonse, the example that you have used, you figured a way of making an extra income for yourself by doing online writing, but you felt it's not enough. Can I be able to get 10 other guys and bring them into this space? So for instance, for us, one of the tools that we deploy, and I think it's also because most of us started building our ideas while we were working for other people. So like when we were still in uni, you were having opportunities to work for other founders, see how they do things. And those guys allowed us opportunities to see how things actually work in the real sector. So for us, we asked ourselves, it doesn't make sense for somebody to go for an internship, having studied law for their third year, and perhaps they don't know any other lawyer in their entire life. So for instance, I love making a joke that I decided I want to become a lawyer out of watching a series that used to premiere back then called The Practice. Until I graduated and went to Kibera Law Courts and Kajiado Law Courts and Kagema Law Courts and realized it's east and west what I had seen in the movies and what they actually do here on ground. That kind of setting. So we think we need to create as many opportunities in between where guys get real exposure. For instance, if during the April holidays when I'm at home, I get 2 weeks of being in a teaching fraternity, be there with teachers in staff room. I come back home August, get another 2 weeks to go to a medical facility, spend time with nurses, see what they do. By the time I'm getting to first year, maybe my long first holiday is coming, get a small experience in a law firm. By the time I'm getting to second year, I have had lots of exposure opportunities to look at that by the time I'm making a decision, it's at least based on something. As opposed to this thing that sometimes I think if you start out of every 10 people that have done the Kenyan Joint Admission Board program in universities, if you stopped 10 guys and asked them random questions whether they did what they wanted to do, it's likely 5 out of 10 did something that was assigned to them. Yeah. So you have now done a veterinary course, you are out in the market, you don't know where to start. So I think what I'm talking about is building as many exposure opportunities as you can. Wherever you are, if you're a graphics designer, can you be able to attach somebody else who maybe is studying graphics design somewhere else? They come see how you do that kind of thing. Next week, they go somewhere else. And this can be built literally in every single sector that you can think about, but somebody needs to be able to build it. And we are not going to think that the government is going to do that. I feel like as young people, we can leverage on some of these things. And I want to highlight that I think for me, the best thing that happened to me in my life is realizing that you can get more doors opened by thinking about volunteer work. And we try to always encourage guys, if there's any volunteer work that you can be able to do, and as a company, we are champions of volunteerism because we think that's an untapped resource that needs to be put nicely, put together, can be measured, can be added value, can be improved, and even organization can start tapping into that same volunteerism network where, if I've done disaster management and by the time I'm getting to Kobe, I've been to Red Cross, I've been to this other organization, I've been to those guys are observing me, they are getting to get a feel of what I can do. So you find by the time you're getting to your third year, you have like 3 options you can be able to pick from. And this is applicable to every single trade. And as young people, we need to be able to do that because if you think about what the recruitment platforms do, a majority of them, they don't do like lots of intentional training for you. It's you creating a profile, submitting something, and in the hope that if somebody shows up and these guys like me, I'll be connected there. But the other side to it is that we need to build opportunities where young people can be facilitated to, first of all, give out there the skills they have while they are learning. So this is like, think of it as an internship that is rolled out on a massive scale.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. Thank you for your participation. I just want to go to the parting shot now. Maybe I'll start with Alphonse, and then I come to you. You give us the way forward, maybe briefly, and then we'll finish this session tonight.
Yeah, I think first I want to thank Alex for great wisdom. This gentleman is heavily endowed. Thank you so much, Alex, for the sharing of that wisdom. It's heavy. I tried to push you to the corner in the first session, and you are welcome. You are calm, and you responded very well. I think that is good, and I'm personally satisfied. Maybe to our viewers, there are 2 things you need to know about your economic life. Is either you'll be getting resources, your financial resources from your employment income or non-employment income. And in an employment income, you might be getting it from where you have invested what you had gotten earlier, or you might be getting from your own type of assignments and jobs, either your own trade. What should be clear at this point of crisis is that some people are losing their jobs. And as you lose jobs, it's not death sentence. So don't go and start getting depression. In fact, great people with great jobs out here that have employed more people lost their jobs to start those new jobs that have employed others. So it might be your time just to make a reflection. Are you going back to search for employment, or is it your time to launch into your own trade? Is that trade having some capabilities to start it online, or does it require online to facilitate it? So that you may be, some of the things you're doing might not necessarily be digital, but they require digital solutions for facilitation and making it effective, efficient, and as Alex said, it looks cool, very easy to do, cheaper, and effective to everybody who is in the trade, whether employees or your customers. So I don't want my fellow brothers and sisters to be depressed because they lost their jobs or their jobs are already at risk. I want you to know that it is a cycle of life. When you lose one, another one is coming. It is just a season, and the other one coming, you must be intentional, whether it is coming through employment or through personal engagement that you want to create your own. Whichever way you go, give it your best. It will definitely succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alphonse. So I want to go to Alex. Alex, you can give your part.
Well, I think for me, my parting shot is going to be a little bit broad view. And I think everyone who is watching this, and every single young Kenyan that we have in this country, first of all, I want to say it may not feel like it, but it's one of the best times to be a Kenyan and to be a young Kenyan. If you're in Kenya, you have really good chances that regardless of the difficulties, regardless of the hard times, regardless of what is not working or all the challenges that we have out there, there is always hope that we are a very resilient people, and we always come up with way forward at the end of it all. So for me, I want to encourage every one of us that this is just but a passing wind. Things will get better, and I think every single crisis that comes in our individual lives, in our corporate lives, in our national lives, somehow, some way brings out the best in us. And the best people, the best countries, the best companies, they actually emerge out of tough times. So I think let's keep hope alive. Let's, most importantly, communicate, collaborate, talk to each other. They say that, the best disinfectant is sunlight. So if there's an issue one is going through, let's bring it out in the open. Let's discuss, and expect a better tomorrow. I think that's my parting shot.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. So sorry. So thank you very much, Alex, for coming. Actually, it was a very insightful discussion. This is very interesting because at the same time, and always we will never agree, all of us, but the reality is going forward, we have to look for solutions, and young people need solution. Older people need solution. The government needs solution. The government needs us because government does not create jobs, and we must create jobs for ourselves, for our people. And that's why we are saying, Alex, you really help us to actually discuss this conversation tonight. And I really appreciate you as a great guy who is actually living the Kenyan dream. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, guys. See you again.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. All right.
I said I'll get by.